Let me guess, you're not an alcoholic, not drinking in the morning, and you're not missing work. You're not getting any DUIs either, and you're not falling apart. And yet, you're also not fine, because if you were, you wouldn't be here right now. So if you ever told yourself, I'm not that bad, but you also know this is not who I want to be anymore, welcome. You're in the right place. Welcome to Beyond the Gray, the podcast about gray area drinking and how it impacts your health, relationships, purpose, and faith. This is where we have real conversations about the topics successful men over 50 don't usually talk about out loud. If you've built a great life but keep asking, is this it? You're not alone. When alcohol becomes your go-to off switch and your marriage, health, or purpose feel disconnected, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Kari, and this, my friend, is where the gray ends. All right, welcome to episode 1 of Beyond the Gray. I am so glad that you are here because I'm going to say something right out of the gate that most people won't say out loud. Some of the most successful people I've worked with are the ones who feel the most confused. You would never know it by looking at them because their life is not falling apart. It looks so good from the outside, just like mine did when I was in the gray area. And yet there's something inside that is off. And a lot of times they can't put their finger on it. And that is exactly what this podcast is about. This isn't a sobriety podcast. It's not AA. It's not, hey, you're broken conversation and you have to go to a meeting for the rest of your life. It's none of those things. This is very much of a clarity podcast. It's about all gray areas, not just gray area drinking. And today I want to talk about the one thing that I think a lot of people need to hear, that you don't need a rock bottom in your life to admit something is off. You just need honesty. A lot of times we wait for the bottom to fall out before we decide we're going to make a change or that we have to make a change. And I really want you to know that you don't have to wait for those moments. As a matter of fact, it's a superpower for you to zone in on your truth right out of the gate. And that's what I'm hoping to accomplish for you today. So gray area drinking, since that's our main gray area today, I want to share it is not alcoholism. It is not a severe dependency either. It's that space where you're still functioning really well, but you're drinking more than you want to admit. Maybe it is the nightly wine when you get home from work or from a long day. Or maybe it's the bourbon that you're liking and it's a treat for you. Or maybe it's the weekend blow-off steam routine that you have with friends, and it's the easy excuse because here comes the weekend. Maybe it's the business dinners that turn into 3 drinks when you set out to only have 1. Maybe it's the golf trips that you're doing on the weekends or with the guys. Or it could be that vacation mindset that never really ends. It just keeps continuing even when you get home. And here's the really interesting part about all this, that most people in the gray area are doing so well in life. Maybe that's you. You're leading well. You're providing for your family. You're showing up. You're bringing home the money to pay for everything, and you're the best provider there is. You're handling responsibilities well. But you also know that something's not right. You're not operating at your absolute best. You're not sleeping as well. You're not as sharp. Your energy isn't what it used to be. Your body feels heavier than ever. Your motivation is off. Your patience is starting to thin. Your marriage feels, well, flat at best. Not horrible, just not alive with passion like it once was. And the worst part is, you can't put your finger on why. Why is this happening? So you keep doing what you've always done. You keep drinking like it's normal because it's not destroying your life. but it's also not helping you either. That's the gray area. Okay, let's take a deep breath. Whew, that was a lot. I want to address the elephant in the room now because something happens after the age of 50. And if you're listening and you're 52, 57, 61, 69, whatever age, you already know what I'm talking about here. Because it's like life changes overnight. Your body doesn't recover the same. Your sleep gets really sensitive. Your stress tolerance changes. Oh my gosh, let's not even address the hormone shifts that happen. And your metabolism slows down. And alcohol hits so much harder. It's not just a drink. It becomes a multiplier. It multiplies fatigue and inflammation and anxiety. It multiplies weight gain. What's up with that, by the way? And it multiplies emotional distance with those that we love. And what used to feel like a reward is starting to feel like a problem. And here's what most people do instead of addressing it. They negotiate. They negotiate with themselves. Does this sound familiar? I'll only drink on the weekends. I'll only drink socially. I'll only have 2. I'll do a dry January. And then they feel proud until they slide back into the same cycle, and then the shame creeps in because you're thinking, how can I run a business, but I can't control this? How can I lead people, but I can't lead myself? Why do I keep going back? That's what I want to unpack today. Because here's the truth. Most people don't drink because they love alcohol. Really, I want you to think back to the very first time that you had a drink. You didn't like it. I mean, think about it. It might have been when you were a teenager, but most likely you didn't like the taste of it. You tolerated the taste. That's not why most of us drink as we get older with all this stress and everything in our life. We drink because we love what alcohol does. It takes the edge off. It does. It works. It quiets the noise. It shuts down the overthinking inside of our head. And the best part, it gives you that temporary off switch that we're looking for. And this is where I want to bring in something that really hit me most recently. I was listening to a behavioral expert named Nir Eyal. Maybe you've heard of him. He wrote a book called Indistractable. So good. And he said something that stopped me. He said, distraction isn't something that happens to you. It's something you do. And then he went on to say, most distractions are driven by internal triggers, not external ones. Meaning, it's not your phone. It's not the world. It's not your job. It's the discomfort that you're trying to escape. And when I heard that, I thought, oh my gosh, that is exactly what gray area drinking is. Alcohol isn't the real issue. It's the tool that you're using to escape internal discomfort. One more time for those in the back. It's the tool that you're using to escape internal discomfort. The stress, the pressure, the boredom, the loneliness, resentment, emptiness, disconnection. Oh my gosh, alcohol becomes such a great solution for that. But it's not a healthy one. But it feels like an effective one in the moment. So if you've been thinking, why do I keep doing this? It's because alcohol is serving a purpose. It's doing a job. And until you figure out what job it's doing, you're going to keep going back. Let's talk about science just for a moment. I don't want to bore you, but I do want to help you stop blaming yourself, okay? Alcohol is a depressant. So when you drink, you feel relaxed. But here's the part that most people don't realize. Alcohol doesn't improve sleep. It sedates you. That's a huge difference because while you might fall asleep faster, Alcohol disrupts deep sleep and REM sleep. That means your brain doesn't fully recover the way that it needs to. Your body doesn't fully restore itself. And then as the alcohol leaves your system, your nervous system rebounds. And that rebound can increase cortisol. It can spike adrenaline. It can raise your heart rate. And suddenly you're waking up at night. Your mind is racing. Your anxiety is louder than it was yesterday. And you don't even know why. So you wake up feeling like you got hit by a truck again, even if you only had just a couple of drinks. And that is why so many people over 50 start saying, why is alcohol affecting me like this now? Because your body is different. Your nervous system is different now. And what used to feel like relief is now creating the very anxiety that you're trying to escape. And nobody tells you that. Now, this is where it gets deeper. Hang in there with me. Because if you're listening, you might be thinking, okay, sure, I know sleep and cortisol and hormones, got it. But you know there's more, because you didn't come here just for health tips. You came here because you actually feel something. And most people don't want to admit this out loud, but I'm going to say it anyway. Some of the most successful men I've coached carry such a deep guilt, not because they've done something wrong, but because they've built a great life and they still don't feel happy. And they don't know why. And that's so confusing because society says, hey, look at what you have. You should be grateful. And you are grateful. But there's a bigger problem here, is that you're also disconnected and you don't know how to fix it. So alcohol becomes the easiest way to not think about it, to not feel it, just to shut everything down and quiet your mind. And what makes it worse is this. You spent your entire adulthood being the responsible one, providing, leading, the one who holds it all together for everyone else in the family. And somewhere along the way, you stopped asking, what do I really want? What am I doing all this for? What does this next chapter look like? And then one day you wake up and you realize you're in the second half of your life. And then it hits you like a freight train. And that's when the gray gets louder. That's when the drinking becomes more frequent. When the marriage feels more distant. And that's when the questions start showing up for you. So what do you do about it? Maybe you've tried moderating, but I want to address moderation because this is another place people get stuck. Because so many high performers think that moderation sounds like the mature solution, but in reality, moderation is exhausting because moderation requires you to be mentally negotiating with yourself all the time. Should I drink tonight? How much is too much? What time should I stop? What time should I start? Should I drink tomorrow? What if I don't drink at dinner? What if I do? That is constant decision making right there. And you know what successful people already have too much of? Decision making. You're making decisions all day long. Then at night, you're flipping tired and your brain doesn't want discipline. Your brain wants relief. So you do what works. You pour the drink. And then the next morning you say, damn it, not again. And then you repeat the cycle. This is why I don't talk about alcohol as a moral issue. This is behavioral science, and this is internal triggers. This is the nervous system, and it's pattern-based. So here's what I want you to hear from this first episode. If you take nothing else from this, please take this. If alcohol is still in your life, it's because it's solving something. And if you want to change the behavior, you don't start by fighting the alcohol. You start by asking, what am I trying to escape? Because that answer is where your freedom begins. So let me give you something tangible right now. We're going to do something together, and I hope that you will do it with me. I want you to rate these 4 areas of your life 1 through 10. Don't overthink it. Just be honest, okay? The first area we're going to look at is your body. How's your health? Really? And your energy and your sleep? How about your strength and your weight and recovery and your diet? When you think about your body as a whole and you're going to rate yourself 1 through 10, 10 being the best it could possibly be, 1 being the worst, where would you rate yourself? Got your number? Okay, good. Let's move on to the next category, which is being. Being is all about your connection to yourself and to God. Okay? So here's how I want you to rate. Think of some of these questions. How's your internal world? What about your faith or the lack thereof? Do you have one? How about your internal peace, your connection to God, and your connection to yourself? On a scale of 1 through 10, 10 being the highest and 1 being the lowest, where do you rate yourself? Let's move on to balance. Balance, this area is all about relationships. We're going to really focus on your significant other. If you don't have a significant other, then I want you to think about your family and then your friends. How is your marriage? How is your emotional connection to your partner? How about your general relationships? Are you actually present with these relationships? Again, on a scale 1 to 10, where would you rate yourself? And lastly, let's look at your business. And it's not just owning a business. If you don't own a business, I want you to think big here on how is your purpose when you think about your legacy and your drive and your direction. Do you feel proud or are you just tired? Our business world is everything to do with our longevity in our financial world and our purpose. So if we're thinking about that, again, on a scale 1 through 10, 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, where are you? Now that you have a general idea, I want you to ask yourself, which of those areas feels the most off and you're also avoiding it? Because that's usually where the drinking is doing its job. And if you can identify that, you've already started shifting, because clarity changes everything. Now, if you're wondering why I'm so passionate about all of this, it's because I've lived it. I mentioned that to you earlier, and it's true. I was that person that looked fine on the outside, but inside I knew something was off. And I spent the last decade working with hundreds of high-performing men and women, helping them get honest and clear to get their edge back. And not just by quitting drinking, that's just the surface, but by addressing the life that's underneath it, because that's the real work. And if this episode hit home for you, I want you to know I created something free that I want to give to you. It's called the Gray Area Audit. It takes only about 15 minutes. It's private, and it will show you exactly where you're living in the gray and what it's costing you. I'll link it in the show notes for you if you want to go ahead and download it. So let me leave you with this. You don't need a rock bottom, and you don't need to blow up your life. You don't need to wait for something terrible to happen. And if you're listening to this, you already know something is off. And the fact that you're here tells me something, that you're ready for more. More clarity, more strength, more connection, more purpose, more integrity. And that, my friend, is what Beyond the Gray is about. In the next episode, we're going to go deeper into what happens when you try to make a change and you keep sliding back. Because it's not a willpower issue, it's a pattern issue. And patterns, they can be interrupted. If this hit home for you today, consider subscribing or follow and go listen to episode 2, because we're just getting started. I'm Kari, and this is Beyond the Gray. I'll see you in the next episode.